Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Amazement Yugioh deck profile for post-Dawn of Majesty. With the release of the latest Yu-Gi-Oh set, we were given new support for the Amazement deck, including a new monster and a new trap. Finally got around to completing the deck, so I figured an update was due for the deck profile. It's a really fun deck that focuses on controlling the gameplay by activating a bunch of different traps and having varying effects depending on which monster was equipped to the trap, whether it be a opponent's monster or your monster. So it varies. It's kind of like an amusement park ride when it's equipped onto the opponent's monster being the monster themselves on the actual ride, and you as your main deck monsters being the ones orchestrating the ride. So I'm very happy with the results of the deck. I wanted to stay as pure as possible as I could for the Amazement deck, so we'll basically stick to the main playstyle for the good Amazement part. I might work on an Amazement Trap Tricks deck later on in the future, but until then, we'll stick to just the pure build. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for our monsters, we are running 3 of the main monster, which is Amazement Administrator, Arlecchino. Once per turn, you can banish any number of attraction traps from your graveyard, then target that many cards your opponent controls, destroy them, and you can use each of the following effects of Amazement Administrator, Arlecchino once per turn. If a trap card is activated except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster except during the damage step, you can target one of those face-up monsters and they control and equip one attraction trap from your deck to that target. So with this card, you have options and availability of all the different Amazement traps you run on the deck every time your opponent would summon a monster, equipping on the appropriate one for the situation depending on what you need done to that monster. And being able to special summon Arlecchino from your hand just makes it that much more, quickly of a boss monster to summon out. Having 2600 attack, it's definitely one that can hit over a good amount of different monsters your opponent may have. But the main playstyle comes in at the fact that the more Amazement traps you go through, the more cards you can destroy of your opponents as well, using this one card. And I also run 3 Amazement Attendant Comica. When this card's normal summon, you can set 1 attraction trap directly from your deck. In a quick effect, you can target one of your attraction traps equipped to a monster, equip it to one Amazement monster you control, or one face-up monster your opponent controls. You can only use this effect of Comica once per turn. So you have the set option for a good variety of the traps we run in this deck, which we do run a pretty high amount of trap cards. But this card's also just good to change around the attraction trap setup equipment, and then be able to gain you additional card effects depending on if they were first equipped to your opponent's monsters and now equipped to your Amazement monsters. With the newest of the Amazement monsters and also the last of the lineup that we run in the deck being 3 Amazement Assistant Delia. If you can reveal 1 attraction trap from your hand to special summon this card from your hand, and you can send 1 attraction trap from your hand or face on the field to the graveyard to set 1 attraction trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone. You can only use each effect of Assistant Delia once per turn. So the special summon comes in handy for the fact that this card is a level 4 monster, just like Attendant Comica. So being able to summon both of these cards out, with one being the normal summon and then the other one being your special summon, can then allow you to at least have a good variety of Amazement traps on the field, and then go for, let's say, a Link 2 summon or a Rank 4 Xyz summon, using both of these cards as the resource. That's why I like running 3 Delia, so you always have the option, as long as you have the Amazement trap in your hand to use to reveal to special summon this card out in the field as that resource. And then the last of the monsters that we run in the deck, it's more the hand trap of choice. I run 3 Psyframe Gear Gamma and the 1 Psyframe Driver, just giving me the option for the Omega. Can be a real control play style against my opponent if I can successfully summon this card when they try and activate a monster effect against one of my cards, and also just stopping their own monster effects if they were to go first against me. And if you want to run Ash Blossom and Effect Failure, they can always swap in for these cards. It's just my preferred choice of hand trap for this deck. And that's it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. The small spell lineup with just 3 amazing time ticket, the quick play spell, pay 800 life, apply this effect depending on whose turn it is. So your turn, you can add 1 Amazement card from your deck to your hand. If it's your opponent's, you can set 1 Amazement trap directly from your deck, and it can be activated this turn. So it's a quick play spell, so giving you that resource, you can activate it just to add the Arlecchino to your hand, and then use with your own traps you activate. But being able to set, if you open up multiples of this card, activating the 1 on your turn, then setting the other one to then in turn activate, and then activate an Amazement trap the same turn you set it using this spell card. It's definitely a 3 of just having that search option for just 800 life, and then also just more setup for all your different traps you are on the deck is a big plus and a great way to disrupt your opponent's plays. And then lastly, for these spells, I just run 2 Amazement Precious Park and 1 Terraforming. The Precious Park, during your main phase, you can activate 1 Attraction Trap the turn it was set. And during the end phase, you can send 1 Attraction Trap you control, equipped to a monster to the graveyard to target 1 of the traps with a different name that is banished in your graveyard and set that target. So not only can this field spell help to recycle Arlecchino's banished cards that it used for destruction, but it can also just help by making it so you can activate those traps that much more quickly on the field. And that is it for the spells. Like I said, it was a pretty small lineup because the majority of the cards that we run in the remainder of the deck are traps. I run 3 of probably the best one in the deck, and that is Amaze, Attraction, Horror House. You target 1 amazement monster you control or 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, and equip it with this card. You can activate the following effects depending on which monster is equipped. You'll have that for a good majority of different amazement traps that we're running in the deck. If it's you target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects until the end of turn. If it's your opponent, you change the equip monster to face down defense position. So being able to just have your opponent summon a monster, and then when you have Arlecchino on the field, activate this card by equipping it to that monster, then flipping it face down, can disrupt many link plays your opponent may try to do, or just needing that monster as the basis for their main go-to play they were trying to do in the first place. So 3 of this card, so you always have the available option to go into this card for it. So you definitely need 3 of this, and also 3 of the Amaze Attraction Cyclo Coaster, with this one having the same requirements whether it's equipped to you or your opponent's monster. If it's you target 1 spell or trap your opponent controls, send both it and this card to the graveyard. Or if it's your opponent's monster, you add 1 amazement monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send this card to the graveyard. So it'll be sent to the graveyard either way, but still being able to search any of the viable options you need for one of your plays, or just stopping one of your opponent's spell or traps if they're trying to side deck against you, you can activate this card in response quite easily and then take care of that problem. I also, for the last of the 3 ups for the attraction traps, 3 amazement family faces. You target 1 monster your opponent controls equipped with your attraction trap. Equip this card to it. While this card is equipped to a monster, take control of the equipped monster. And while you control the equipped monster, it gains 500 attack, and you cannot activate its effect. Also, it is treated as a amazement monster. You can only activate 1 amazement family faces once per turn. So with the majority of the attraction traps we run in the deck, this card's just good for taking resources away from your opponent and using them as your own. I like the 3. It helps because I can always have that option to take one of my opponent's monsters and use it that much more easily on my side of the field, whether it be for a link play or for an Xyz play, depending on its level. And I'm running 2 of the new attraction trap, and that is Amaze Attraction Viking Vortex. You target 1 amazement monster, having the equip. If it's equipped to you, once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, negate the attack. And if you change the control of the equipped monster until the end of the battle phase, and your opponent, when the equipped monster activates its effects, return it to the hand. So with it, you just have another way to answer to some of the bigger monsters your opponent may use on the field using this trap. I only run 2 though. You can use it more with Arlecchino for the search. More of the other cards like Cyclo Coaster and Horror House can be readily available if you just have it in your hand to set and use for that option. But Viking Vortex, you don't really need as much because it's more of a situational play against your opponent. And the fact that Arlecchino can be special summoned when you activate traps, so I wanted to go for some traps that are just that much easier to activate on the field. So I run 3 Lost Wind. Not only does this have a graveyard option of resetting on the field, giving you more options to special summon Arlecchino, but being able to stop your opponent's special summon monster's effects by negating its effect, and having its original attack means that you can then hit easily over it with some of your other monsters, including the Attendant and Assistant, having lower attack than Arlecchino, but still, if you have it with Lost Wind, you should be able to still hit over it quite easily. And I also run 3, there can only be 1, so you can only run 1 of each type of card, with Gamma being a psychic, and the only conflicting 2 are Comica and Delia being machine monsters. As long as you have 1 of them, and then Arlecchino on the field being a psychic monster, you won't really have much problems with this card. It's more to stop your opponent's own plays. Activating this trap can also just be the response to summon Arlecchino onto the field using it, but while also shutting down a good majority of your opponent's cards. If your opponent runs a deck with a good majority of different cards, you can always just side this card out for some other additional cards, or even up some of your other numbers for the amazement traps. And then lastly, for the traps, also just running a small Solemn Brigade, so 2 Solemn Judgment and 2 Solemn Strike. You can up the number of Strike by dropping the number of Judgments, or even increasing both by taking out the number of There Can Only Be One for additional copies of this, and Solemn Warning in the deck. Just good to stop if you have a lot of different traps on the field. These can protect them when your opponent uses cards that could try and destroy them all, like Harpy's Feather Duster, or even Evenly Matched. And then that is it for the main deck. Moving on now to the extra deck. The extra deck is pretty generic in terms of Link Monsters and Xyz. For the Link Monsters, we're running 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, 1 Hippo Shenengan, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Barricade Board Blocker, 1 Underclock Taker, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, and 1 Boral Sword Dragon for all the Link monsters. For the Xyz monsters, I run 1 Baguska, 1 Cowboy, 1 Tornado Dragon, and 1 Abyss Dweller. Once again, all different situations that definitely will come up if you have the rank 4 play to make, but it's going to still be good, especially Baguska with this deck being more of a trap-based deck, being able to stop your opponent's plays by summoning this card out, and then having the traps for protection while you stall out the monster effects. And lastly, for the Synchros, just the Psy-Frame Lord Omega for the Gamma play, so you can at least have the Synchro target to summon out onto the field also. And then as for the go-to plays in the deck, one of my favorites is with the new Delia. If you have this card in one of the attraction traps in your hand, along with Comica, these 3 cards can at least set you up with a good amount of cards on the field. What you'll do first is you'll reveal Delia and the Cyclocoaster to special summon onto the field, via attack or defense position. And also with this card, for the set directly from the deck, you can send another one to set another attraction trap right into your spell and trap card zone, depending on the situation you need for that card. And then you can normal summon Comica, giving you the additional trap set, so then you can go for the one you don't have or the one you sent that you don't need, giving you 2 set cards already on the field, and then being able to then overlay the 2 into the choice of Xyz monster that I spoke of, whether it be for the stall game against your opponent, you name it, and still having the traps on the field to use against them as well. And then if you have this card in attack position or a different Xyz monster of choice, activating that trap can at least help to summon Arlecchino out into the field to make use of. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's definitely a fun deck. I'm happy with the results of it. We'll see if we'll be getting any more support for it. Maybe some extra deck monsters or just some additional traps. We'll see what direction this deck takes in the future. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.